Good afternoon, you're watching Q News, and here are the top stories for this hour. A group linked to the Muslim Brotherhood staged a protest outside Egypt's embassy in Tel Aviv, blaming Cairo for Gaza's humanitarian crisis. Dozens gathered outside the Egyptian embassy in Tel Aviv under Israeli police protection in a protest led by members of the Islamic movement, the Muslim Brotherhood's affiliate in Israel. The demonstrators, all Israeli citizens, accuse Egypt of contributing to Gaza's siege and starvation. The protest comes despite ongoing Israeli military operations in Gaza since October 7th, which have killed thousands and triggered a deepening humanitarian crisis. Egypt says protests outside its embassies serve the interests of the Israeli occupation and undermine its historic support for Palestine. Egypt's foreign ministry has denounced demonstrations outside its embassies abroad, saying they distort Cairo's long-standing support for the Palestinian cause since the Nakba. In a statement, the ministry warns such protests distract international and Arab attention from the real perpetrator of the crisis in Gaza, Israel, and ease mounting global pressure on Tel Aviv to end its violations. Egypt reiterated its commitment to Palestinian rights and a just resolution to the conflict. Egyptians living abroad have begun voting in the 2025 Senate elections, with polls open for 2 days across 138 stations worldwide. The National Elections Authority says Egyptians abroad can vote on August 1st, today, and tomorrow, August 2nd, at designated polling stations in embassies and consulates. A total of 138 stations have been allocated globally. Voting is conducted in person by secret ballot with a valid national ID or passport showing the ID number required. The authority reaffirmed that all eligible Egyptians listed in the voter database have the right to participate. Egypt's foreign ministry says 136 polling committees have been established worldwide to support overseas voting in the Senate elections. The Egyptian foreign ministry says polling stations have been set up in 136 locations globally to ensure wide participation in the 2025 Senate elections. A central operations room is coordinating the vote around the clock with the National Elections Authority. Foreign Minister Badr Abdul Ati has appointed Ambassador Nabil Habashi to oversee coordination, following a series of meetings with ambassadors heading overseas missions. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney has announced Canada's intention to recognise the state of Palestine at the UN General Assembly in September. Carney emphasised Canada's steadfast support for Israel's right to exist in peace and security, stressing that a viable Palestinian state recognising Israel is essential for lasting peace. Highlighting the erosion of the two-state solution, Carney called for the coordinated international action to restore hope for peaceful coexistence between Israelis and Palestinians. He noted the central role of the United States and Canada's commitment to partnering for peace in the region. US President Donald Trump has warned that Canada's plan to recognize a Palestinian state could jeopardize ongoing trade negotiations between the two countries. Posting on his Truth Social platform, Trump said it would be very hard to finalize a trade deal with Canada if Prime Minister Mark Carney proceeds with the recognition at the UN General Assembly in September. The Trump administration has announced its intent to impose a 35% tariff on a range of Canadian goods if a new agreement is not reached. The warning adds a sharp geopolitical twist to already tense economic talks. And US President Donald Trump has called on Hamas to surrender and release detainees, stating it was the fastest way to end the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. His remarks from Truth Social come as US envoy Steve Witkoff heads to Israel to revive stalled ceasefire negotiations and address worsening conditions in the enclave. Famine warnings persist as indirect talks between Israel and Hamas recently collapsed in Doha, with both sides blaming each other for the deadlock. And that concludes our two top stories for this hour. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Qnews.